Welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook, got Ian Boyd with me. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for helping us get to 8,000 subscribers, but we want to get to 10,000. So if you are not subscribed, make sure you click that button, like this video, subscribe to the channel as always. We really appreciate it, especially as the season gets closer. Because the season's getting closer, now is a great time to join Inside Texas. Use a promo code IT1. Get yourself 2 months of Inside Texas for just $1. Ian, today is Tuesday, July 30th. Tomorrow is Wednesday, July 31st. That's when preseason camp starts. Preseason camp, not fall camp. And we'll hear from Steve Sarkisian tomorrow. But today, we got the rare opportunity to talk to the Longhorns' three coordinators: Kyle Flood, the offensive coordinator; Pete Kwiatkowski, the defensive coordinator; and then Jeff Banks, special teams coordinator and tight ends coach. So a little bit there. Let's start on the offense. And Kyle Flood has been with Steve Sarkisian for a long time, I think dating back to their Atlanta Falcons days, post USC for Sark, post Rutgers for Flood. They've been in Atlanta, they've been at Alabama, now they're here at Texas together. It sounds like Kyle Flood knows who his top 5 O linemen are going to be. And we got some interesting insight, at least from Flood, on maybe that right tackle spot that we had a really good idea of on Inside Texas, but we heard it from Hitting the Man himself about Cam Williams' status in that spot.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's just Cam Williams, right?
Right.
He said Cam Williams is the the right tackle heading into camp. They'll always give, outs if in the event that this guy emerges, this guy gets hurt, this guy doesn't show up, this guy doesn't play. In terms of, I think they all are expected to be present, but in terms of whether they keep improving and putting in the work or not. But the offensive line sounds like it's just what we saw against Kansas State. Just plug in Cam Williams and same thing. Somebody asked him about the interior line and Jake Majors, and Flood was like, "Oh, so you're assuming Jake Majors is starting at center?" And then he laughed and everyone else laughed. Everybody knows this is going to be the first offseason Joe where there are not questions, manufactured or real, about whether or not Jake Majors will start at center. So it all seems very stable up there. And that's good because it means that they know exactly what they're going to plan to do this season. They don't need to adjust course based on the line because they know what they're going to get.
He, as offensive coordinator, even though he's not the play caller, he talked about a few different positions. At running back, he mentioned, Jaden Blue, CJ Baxter, and Trey Wisner as guys to be excited about. Quinn Ewers got some talk, and he said he's seen some leaps from Quinn Ewers. No Arch Manning discussion. And we'll get to tight end when we talk about Jeff Banks. But one of the things that Flood said that really stood out was that they could have 9 receivers rotate with the 1s and 2s during training camp. And we know that Sark likes to keep a pretty tight rotation. He even said, Sark did at SEC Media Days, they're going to play more receivers. But putting a number to it, like 9, because I think there may be only 10 in that room total on scholarship. That lets you know, I think, in a way that we haven't heard before, just how deep this room is in the eyes of the coaches.
You don't want to be that 10th guy on scholarship, huh? The one guy that's not in the rotation. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll see as fall camp comes along whether they hold to that or not. But I think just because the talent is so good that they don't really necessarily want to commit to a 3 yet. And maybe they will also, they brought in 3 transfers, Joe. And maybe they don't want the non-transfers to feel like they're out of it. I think usually if you bring in a transfer that's like a starter at his old school, he's probably going to play a lot. So they might just want to keep guys engaged as well. But this is clearly a legitimately deep room.
We'll have some more from Flood. We'll have some more on PK, but real quick before we keep on going, got to show some love to our sponsor, Andre the Lawyer. Andre the Lawyer, a longtime Longhorn in the Dallas area, helping injured Texans, whether you're in an 18-wheeler accident, slip and fall, on-the-job injury, anything like that. If you have an issue where you need legal help, give Andre the lawyer a call. He and his team are available basically any time, and they will give you a personalized number to make sure you can get in contact with them whenever you need to. So call Andre, 214-444-8808. Again, a Longhorn, a friend of Inside Texas, someone we appreciate a lot, who's been with us from the start. Andre the lawyer, 214-444-8808. Let's keep it moving. Talk a little bit about Pete Kwiatkowski, Texas defensive coordinator. Little bit different microphone presence, I'd say, than Kyle Flood. You and I were talking in the car that Kyle Flood definitely still has that head coach persona to an extent after his time at Rutgers. Pete Kwiatkowski doesn't really have that. Not to say that what he said doesn't have meaning and can't be, you can't get stuff from it, but a little bit drier in his delivery, things like that. But you asked him before we get to the edge room, you asked him a question about certain types of coverages, and he gave a very short answer, but it was a revelatory answer as well.
Yeah, I asked him if he ever envisioned the Texas defense getting into the single high safety coverage world that him and Nansen both majored in when they coached out west. Or I asked if he had been converted to the too high life. And he said, there was definitely a place for post defense. That's what he's calling single high coverage. And then he just kind of had a twinkle in his eye, and he's like, we'll see. And he just kind of lifted it. But you could tell that is exactly what him and Nansen would like to do more of this year. We'll see the extent to how much, but yeah, I think all that guesswork we've had in the offseason about the defense looking more like the Washington or Arizona defenses that these guys have coached before is going to bear out.
One of the things that with Kwiatkowski is obviously his position group is one of the most talented on the team, with Barron Sorrell, Trey Moore, Ethan Burke, Colin Simmons, all those different guys. But he took a moment to really emphasize that Barron Sorrell is the leader of that room. There's a lot of hype around a lot of the new guys, Moore and Simmons, deservedly so. But Barron Sorrell is going to be someone who plays a lot of football for Texas and is going to lead that room and set the foundation, I feel like, for a lot of those different players. Those players are going to see time this year. Obviously, Trey Moore could end up being a starter at the Buck position. Depends a little bit on how they want to deploy their entire defense, how they want to deploy Burke, how they want to deploy Simmons, Sorrell. But it was interesting to hear that Sorrell, someone a little bit unheralded entering this offseason, maintains kind of the alpha dog standing in that room. PK also went through a few different positions, as he does at the defensive coordinator spot. He mentioned Starr, and he mentioned Jahdae Barron and Jalen Gilbo, and he confirmed a lot of previous Inside Texas reporting about how the resurgence of Jalen Gilbo has really given Texas a lot of different, leeway to use Jahdae Barron in multiple spots.
He really talked up Gilbo. I mean, he must have had one heck of an offseason, because he was very impressed with him. I think they loved how he played as a freshman, and then had to kind of get back to that after he was injured or something, right? And they seem to think that Gilbo could be a star at star based on the way PK was talking him up. But they already have a star there in Jahdae Barron. So, I mean, that's going to be pretty interesting to watch, right? Does he just start at corner a lot more than we thought? Are they going to move him around to safety? Are they going to have packages where they can both get on the field? It seems like all of those should be considered, because it sounds like they really want to get Gilbo on the field a lot more this season.
He was also some discussion followed as well about linebacker. I took a little interest in how he talked about Anthony Hill, and he talked about his journey onto the field. And you hear this a lot in so many different sports. But PK said, Anthony Hill was a really good athlete last year. Or maybe it was something like he was a great football player, but he wasn't a great linebacker. This year, they have enough trust in him to not only play that Mike linebacker position, but to be a great linebacker. Of course, they also discussed replacing T'Vondre Sweat and Byron Murphy. That's going to be a challenge, but there's confidence in Alfred Collins, confidence in Bill Norton, and even Jermaine Lillet, who, if you had to Inside Texas, I wrote about earlier today. Anything on PK? Anything else you want to touch on? Or are you ready to move on to special teams and a little bit of tight end?
It was funny to hear him talk about Anthony Hill that bluntly. I thought that was, when you watch closely, that was kind of obvious that Anthony Hill didn't really know what he was doing, but he runs around and he hits really hard. And so, like, one play, you might be watching him and just thinking, like, what is this guy doing? Like, why is he out there? And then you'll like see him run from out of the picture and hit a ball carrier and just flatten somebody. And oh yeah, that's why he's on the field. Him getting to the level where he actually knows what he's doing could be the most substantial change for the entire defense from last year to this year. Hopefully, for Texas' sake, that's a bigger deal than the change from Sweat and Murphy to Collins and the rest of the defensive tackles, right?
We will move on and let's talk about Jeff Banks, the special teams coordinator. He was able to, praise Bert Auburn and the way he goes about things. And you kind of forget that all these guys practice too. And I remember when I was in high school as a punter, I just kind of did whatever I wanted to do. I kicked into the net for about 20 minutes. And then I just watched practice, and I got to relax until it was time for sprints. And I did okay because I wasn't doing anything at all when it came time for sprints. That's not what these guys do in college. Like Bert Auburn, yeah, you can't. There is such thing as over kicking, and they had to deal with that, with Cameron Dicker in practice. But that's all to say. Jeff Banks talked about Bert Auburn, how much of a professional he is, someone who coaches himself, someone who's driven, someone who understands his role on the team, understands it well, earned a scholarship as a result. That's a known. There's some unknowns with special teams, and one of them is that punter. Jeff Banks is going to praise Michael Kern as much as any coach can praise somebody. But Ian, a freshman is still a freshman no matter what position he's playing, and you can end up on an island as a punter. Michael Dixon did it a couple times in his freshman year. That's why Texas went and got Ryan Sanborn last year, to have that experience. So it sounds like there is competition, as you noted, over on Inside Texas, but it seems like they trust Kern right now to be the first guy. We'll see how that goes over the course of the season.
Yeah. Banks' comments on punter did not make me feel really warm and confident. I don't know about you, but I got the sense that they were like, we got this walk-on that's okay. We got this freshman that will be good at some point, and we're just going to throw the better one out, and we'll see what happens. I mean, they sound like they want to score a lot of points, I guess, is their goal. But I learned a lot today listening to Jeff Banks talk about special teams. I don't know if you did, but he was talking about what they look for in a punter. And he mentioned obviously the ability to kick the ball hard, but he mentioned directional punting is the name of the game in their scheme. And so they want guys that they can at least teach, if they can't already do it, get the ball out in 2 steps and punt directionally to serve the broader scheme. But I learned some other things we'll get into in a minute, but I did not learn that Banks is extremely confident in the punters. That is not something that was communicated today.
Yeah, he said something. It's like, granted, if you ever have heard Jeff Banks talk, it's energy. And he's like, I told my assistants to help me get more patience. And
yeah,
you hear about that from an assistant coach. It's like, oh, but to that directional punting point, think of Steve Sarkisian's offense. They like drop back passing from the pocket and hitting shots downfield most of the time. There's some stuff where they move launch points, but they like passing from the pocket. You can kind of think of punting the same way. You don't want to telegraph rugby. Sometimes you do. Very rarely they did that. But they like the punter being there and being able to kick it in all different parts of the field from that one spot, not to reveal anything. To that point, you also mentioned that he talked about what they look for in a punt blocker, what they look for in a field goal blocker. You know, a field goal, you want the tall, big dudes with long arms to reach up and try to make sure they have their limbs in the A gap. With punt block, you want the guys who are fast enough to get off the line, who know, in the words of Jeff Banks, know how to take a ball off the guy's foot. They'll take care of that. But there was another spot, at least on special teams, that was interesting to hear him talk about, and that's gunner. When you think about Texas last year, Keaton Crawford, for all the issues he may have had playing in the secondary, was fast and could hit, and he could run upfield real well from the punt gunner spot. Keelan Robinson was the same way. Keaton Crawford's now at Nevada. Keelan Robinson is now in the NFL, and they're going to be looking for new guys. And you know, Trey Wisner was one they mentioned, but as Kyle Flood said, that could be someone who gets carries. DeAndre Moore also mentioned, and again, Jeff Banks talked about how, yeah, those guys are athletes, but they play offense. They don't tackle all too much. So it sounds like they constantly put good athletes at gunner. It sounds like that's going to continue, but it's going to be some new faces, especially when you think about having to track down punts off a new leg this year too.
Yeah, he mentioned Warren Roberson as a guy that's likely to have a chance at the gunner spot and to have a big role. They're very high on the secondary in general for producing potential special team stars, because they got Banks kept reiterating that they have all these guys with length and speed. It's like he didn't even mention Kobe Black, but Black is big. Derek Williams is like 6'2". Jelani McDonald is like 6'1" or 6'2". Xavier Filsami is like 6'1". They got all these guys that he can envision being really good there. I think that this fall he's going to see if any of them are upgrades over just running Wisner and who's the other one? DeAndre. He also this was interesting to me. I've always wondered, like, could you just put like Colin Simmons on punt block? Would that not make sense? And the way he explained it was, you know, on like a field goal kick, someone like Colin Simmons is great because the kicker kicks from the same spot every time. But when the punter is back with so much room to work with, he mentioned Silas Bolden as a potential punt block guy. Because for Banks, the key is having a guy with the long speed and the change of direction to find and track the punter in open grass and then get his hands up. So that was really interesting. I mean, obviously watching Keelan Robinson the last couple of years, you could see that at play, and it made sense why he was good at it. But to me, it was interesting to learn why you wouldn't just have like a Colin Simmons or like a Justice Finkley, you know, like just one of your faster edges, why that guy wouldn't do it. And that's why. For anyone, if anyone ever wondered.
Shows the evolution of special teams. It used to be like, all right, go walk-ons, go do that. And now it's, we need these starters to do this to win these field position battles. It's important. Before we get out, anything big on the tight end position that Banks talked about? He was very, very offered a lot of praise to Juan Davis, something that's happened on Inside Texas as well. Anything from that position that really stood out to you?
Yeah, he had a couple interesting things on Juan Davis. He was like in line, meaning like on the line of scrimmage. He's like, I do not want Juan Davis on the line of scrimmage. He does not have the length for it. He's like 6'2", 240, 6'2", something like that, right? But he's like everything else that we would want our tight end to do, he's great at. He's blocks really fiercely when he's off the ball. He's a weapon down the field. It sounds like they really like Juan Davis in the 12 personnel this year. And playing him with Gunnar Helm can absolutely play in line. So there's a definite role for him. Nyblack, when they got Nyblack in recruiting out of the portal, it seemed like he was going to steal that job because he was so good at Alabama. It sounds like they have not yet seen the real Nyblack because he said they were very cautious with him in the spring because he was coming off of surgery. So Nyblack is still a little bit of a unknown, and there's a chance that Juan Davis has seized the opportunity from Nyblack being sidelined a little bit to where it might just be Davis this year, and then we'll see Nyblack next year. That would be very nice for Arch Manning. You'd almost wonder if they orchestrated that on purpose, but probably not, but maybe.
That's one guy we haven't talked about today, and I think that speaks to the beat media knowing what's going on at quarterback. Yeah. Speaks to Inside Texas knowing what's going on, and make sure you head to InsideTexas.com. Use the promo code IT1. That'll get you 2 months of premium access for just $1. Today is July 30th. I think that gets you through September 30th, and the Mississippi State game is on the 28th of September, I think. So sounds about right. You'll get through the first 5 games, almost, if not, of the season with this offer. So go to Inside Texas, use IT1, get 2 months for just $1. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. We're going to have a bunch of great practice intel over the course of the next few days. We'll have instant reaction from what we saw at practice. We'll be able to offer clips on this channel from the practice fields. You won't see it anywhere else if you're not in the Austin area. And you don't even have to go to watch a local TV channel to do it. You can come right here to this YouTube channel. If you're on podcast, we'll still have all the great analysis, and make sure you give us a 5-star rating and review. Thank you to our sponsor, Andre the Lawyer. Ian, thank you. And we'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com.